Hello, how are you? Today I'm going to talk to you about high blood sugar in the morning, why it happens to most people, and how you can minimize it, how to make sure it doesn't happen in your case. This video is very important if you live with diabetes, if you have prediabetes, if you're trying to lose weight, you're going to love it. Stay until the end because you won't want to miss it. If you love tips on nutrition, health, and fitness, you're going to love this channel. Go ahead and subscribe and remember to activate the notification bell so you get all the updates. I have new videos every day and you're going to love them. Let's start talking more about high blood glucose in the morning, why it happens, and how to minimize it. How to keep your glucose more controlled right from the start of the day. If you like this topic, discussing diabetes and blood sugar control, leave a like so I know you enjoyed it and I'll bring more videos like this. And remember, I have a playlist here on the channel all about diabetes with lots of great tips for you. There's another playlist discussing the relationship between very common foods and blood sugar: bread, flour, eggs, beans, rice, lemon, a bunch of things. I'll leave it down below in the description. Let me know if you have the habit of measuring your glucose in the morning, if you notice that it really tends to be higher in the morning, or if it stays at good levels. I'd love to see your comment. This issue of high glucose in the morning is a very common complaint. That's because, in fact, normal human physiology can contribute to this happening. Of course, there are things you do in your daily life that can make this worse, but our bodies are already programmed by themselves to naturally increase glucose during this period starting from 5 a.m. And this even has a name. It's called the dawn phenomenon. For those who study diabetes, this is very common. This happens mainly because of the secretion of cortisol and other hormones, such as glucagon itself, which occur at this time, along with lower insulin levels. This causes your body to experience an increase in glucose levels in the bloodstream. As a result, your body begins to release even more glucose from the tissues where it was previously stored, such as the liver and muscles, and you ultimately end up with a higher overall blood sugar level than before. Of course, this can happen to some people as a normal physiological process, but there are things you do in your daily life that can make this situation even worse. So let's talk more about what those things are and how to minimize them, how to prevent this from happening. The first thing to mention, for sure, has to do with the amount of carbohydrates you consumed in the evening. Carbohydrates are the macronutrient that will have the greatest impact on your blood sugar. So the more carbohydrates you eat before going to bed, and depending on the type of carbohydrate you consume and what you eat it with, you will be more likely to have hyperglycemia first thing in the morning. So, the American Diabetes Association estimates that an ideal amount of carbohydrates for you to consume in a large meal, such as dinner for example, but also lunch, is around 45 to 60 grams of carbohydrates. But if your last meal is not actually dinner, but rather a late night snack, then the amount should be around 15 to 20 grams of carbohydrates for that last meal. And it's important that you try to stick to carbohydrates with a lower glycemic index, meaning those that are absorbed more slowly, to prevent glucose spikes during the night. And also to prevent you from having hypoglycemia during the night, so that your glucose levels remain stable. Some people experience hypoglycemia in the middle of the night, then eat something very high in glucose to compensate. And this throws everything off balance. They end up waking up with even higher glucose levels in the morning. You correct the hypoglycemia, which is serious, but you wake up with higher glucose levels in the morning, which is problematic. So ideally, you should aim to consume foods with a low glycemic index. So at this time of night, chickpeas, beans, lentils, peas, any type of cereal with fiber. So you can have rice as long as it's in the amount I mentioned, around 45 to 60 grams. Of course, this will vary from person to person. It will depend on health issues, on the insulin you take, if that's the case, but on average, you can use this as a guideline for yourself. And then you will distribute all the carbohydrates. Remember that ideally, you shouldn't mix too many carbohydrates. For example, eating French fries, rice, beans, flour, cassava all together mixed up is not a good idea. Rice, beans, pasta at night, a large amount of carbohydrates, and making this kind of mix that increases the total amount, which makes you lose track, is not a good idea. So, the ideal is really to add plenty of fiber through leafy greens, add a lean protein, and add a healthy fat to slow down the absorption of these carbohydrates as well, to give you better control at this time. Remember that a good source of protein for you to eat at night can be, for example, boiled eggs, tuna, chicken breast, lean ground beef, or even plant-based proteins if you are vegan or simply prefer them. These options are all excellent choices. And healthy fats can come from flaxseed, chia seeds, olive oil, or avocado to complement your meal. It's also important to remember that regular physical exercise really helps control blood sugar. Not only does it use up the excess glucose circulating in your body, but it also improves insulin sensitivity. So ideally, you should have a lifestyle where you incorporate some type of physical activity into your routine. If you can add some type of aerobic and lower intensity activity, it might be even more advantageous or beneficial for you because of these hormones like cortisol that you secrete in the morning, which are stress hormones. So it might be a good idea for you to go for a walk or even a light jog or go up and down stairs if you're able to help burn off some of that excess glucose in your body, in your system. Another important point for us to discuss is your daily medication. You should always follow the prescribed times and the prescribed dosage. Don't skip your medication and don't wait until it runs out to buy more, because sometimes the pharmacy doesn't deliver and you end up missing a day or two. And don't change the dosage on your own, as this can be dangerous for you and may increase the chances of your glucose being higher when you wake up. Another thing that greatly impacts blood sugar, which many people don't know, is a poor night's sleep. So if you've been sleeping poorly, if you've been having trouble falling asleep or staying asleep because of the hormones that are released, this can also cause you to wake up with higher glucose levels. Remember that I have a playlist here on the channel talking all about sleep, how to have a good night's sleep, a healthier night's sleep. I'll leave it down below in the description for you. Also, remember that alcohol can really interfere with this control. Not only because it worsens your sleep at night, often you fall asleep faster, but you wake up more often to go to the bathroom. Your sleep is less restorative, more superficial, and sometimes you even experience insomnia afterwards. So alcohol makes your sleep worse at night, and it also destabilizes your glucose levels. In some cases, it can cause hypoglycemia, which you then need to correct, leading to hyperglycemia. Depending on what you drink, if it's a cocktail, for example, it can raise your blood sugar even more. So, trying to avoid alcohol at night will help you have better glucose control in the morning. If you've been waking up with higher glucose levels, it's very important that you talk to your doctor so they can try to adjust your medication and address your eating habits before bedtime. And if your glucose is high when you're about to have breakfast, it might be better to choose a breakfast that's lower in carbohydrates and rich in proteins and healthy fats. Eggs are a good option, as well as yogurt with chia seeds, a strawberry, or a fruit with fewer carbohydrates can help you. I have many low-carb recipes, and I'll leave them here below in the description for you. Also remember that physical activity in the morning, as I mentioned, can help you burn off that excess glucose circulating in your blood, in addition to improving your sensitivity and reducing insulin resistance. So adding physical activity can be excellent as well. Tell me down below then how your glucose levels are when you wake up in the morning. Do you wake up with them high or low? I'd love to see your comment. Remember to like the video because that also helps me out, and share it with anyone who would enjoy it or who needs this information. Let's work together to expand this chain of good because that's what I want here with the channel. See you next time. Bye.